This picture kind of looks like this man right here is probably this woman's son, and she looks kind of disappointed in something that he's done. Like, I don't know, he's probably out partying, having a good time with his friends, and she kind of raised him to not do things like that. So she's kind of looking out the window like, oh no, I have raised an animal of a child, and he looks like hurt. He disappointed her, and he's not okay with that. And it kind of like, I feel that, and it's like, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but I feel like he might have come clean about how he had gone out with some friends, and he was out having a drink with his buddies, and they got a little bit too wild, as young college kids do. A couple drinks, and they were like, hey, let's go out and have a relay race. Fun thing to do when you're drunk is go out and go have races. But as they were out running, him and his buddies were running across the street, and they were belligerent, so they were out having a good time. He didn't look both ways before he crossed the street and ran out in front of a car and got hit, and he passed away. So they had to explain why this happened to the police, and of course the police found out, so his mom had to find out that way. So his mom is like, wow, I can't believe that you would do something like that. So like, disappointment right now is probably from disappointing his mother from the drinking, obviously, and it's kind of his fault that his friend got hit by a car, because it was his idea to go have that race in the first place.
He just came home from work. This is his grandma, and he got laid off, and they're both really sad because he was like her support system since she's so old, and she can't, she looks old, no offense, grandma, and she can't work, and so he was like supporting her, and so they're both like kind of at a rock bottom now because they both don't have any way to support themselves, and he feels disappointed because it was his fault. He feels it was his fault for getting laid off.
They both look really depressed, and it looks like that this is a grandson and a grandma, and maybe a loved one died. It looks like her daughter and his mom just died, and so she's like looking out the window because she's really depressed and thinking of the times that her daughter was out there in the yard growing up and the different things, and he's trying to cope with it, just looking down and depressed.
So it's about a mother and son coping with the death of the son's father, and they've just gotten back home from the funeral, and they're trying to decide what they need to do with all of his belongings, because the mother no longer wants to have anything in the house that reminds her of him, because it just brings back too many emotions that she's not ready to deal with. But the son is very strongly against getting rid of his father's possessions, but he doesn't have anywhere to put them at his home. So they're both trying to come up with a solution that can meet both their needs, but it's very difficult because it's very recent for both of them, and the emotions are just hitting both the mother and son. The son just isn't ready to let go of his father. His father was somebody that he looked up to and that he wanted to emulate, and now that he's gone, he feels like he's lost his mentor and lost the person that he looks up to. He's also, while trying to assist his mother and help her cope, he's trying to cope himself without the support, and so a lot of his thoughts are just internal, and he doesn't really know what to do with everything that's going on, and he's very confused at the time and very pensive. The mother is kind of oblivious to all of his emotions and how he's feeling because she's stuck in her own world. She's been with her husband for more than 40 years, and she doesn't know how to live life without him. So she's just very confused at this time and very uncertain of where she's going to go now with her life and what she's going to do, because she's made a life out of being a homemaker and helping and serving her husband and just being there for him and being his support system. And now that that's gone, and now that her son's out of the house, she doesn't really know what she's going to do with her life. and it's just a very difficult time for both of the two. He wouldn't know it. The husband is married, but his wife isn't all that supportive, and so she's not really there for him the way she should be, and he doesn't understand like why she doesn't want to be there with him and why she'd rather stay at home than help him deal with his family, because if she was in his place, he would be there right by her side, but he's having to go through this alone since he's an only child. He doesn't have anybody, like his cousins aren't around, he doesn't have any siblings that he can rely on, so this whole burden of his father's death is just on his shoulders. Difficult situation to be in, and while he wishes it could be different, he doesn't really have a say in the matter, so he's kind of just rolling with the punches and trying to get through it as best as he can, and just trying to make everything easier for him as well as easier for his mother. So
it kind of reminds me of, I guess I could have the outfit wrong, but is it Whistler's portrait of Mother? Just going to an art gallery and seeing a painting where some action has occurred, and you're supposed to kind of piece together yourself what action has occurred, because obviously we have actors standing in a very particular way. It almost seems like that one of them regrets, and like at least in real life what I've seen, perhaps maybe more in the movies, just like more of an artsy way, the characters will like look away from each other, like almost like they don't want to look each other in the face or something like that. So it seems really like a father and mother, and he or her, they were in an argument, and one of them said something and went a little bit too far, and they both kind of like were so shocked at that statement that they both kind of like, needed a moment to step back and really, think about what happened.
I could also see in a different perspective where he's probably a police officer, a detective, and she was probably also murdered. So he's the detective that has come to speak to the mother of the victim and kind of be the bearer of bad news. So there's multiple directions that this can be taken, or this is probably a son and this is a mother, and something happened. There's just a lot of emotion that could be interpreted from this, or I don't know, or we could go really messed up and they're lovers. So I could elaborate, but just with this one image, it does give off a lot of sadness and depressive vibes from it.